Welcome one and all. It's time for lockdown hobby time once again. And this time, well, yet again, we've got the Hellfane out. And it's time for some more gold. So, yesterday, I managed to finish off all of the first layer of gold on top of the shaded gold, which makes it technically the third step in the gold process. And the next two steps could very much be described as highlights. So the first thing we're going to do today is, in fact, we're going to go straight for, there we go, polished gold. And this is going to be the edge highlight on all the golden areas so far. And then after that, it's going to be, where's Mr. Silver hiding? There it is. Silver after that. Got a few people in the chat already. We've got Owen, Stu, and Steve at least. Okay, let's dive in, shall we? And the brush I'm going to be using for this edge highlighting, which one? I may just stick with this kind of curved, weird brush I've been using for a lot of the other steps here. I kind of get into a groove with one brush and then end up sticking with that for a while. Speaking of brushes, I have actually found the top for this one, which was lying around. It was under the keyboard. So, do I want to use this brush? Decisions. For edge highlighting, yeah, go on, let's give it a try. If it doesn't work out too great, then I can just grab a different brush and try that. Now, I think this one will be fine. Giving it a good shake. And I just re-moistened the wet palette because it seemed to be getting a bit dry. Not that the paints have dried out much, but it wasn't feeling as moist as it once did, so I thought, why not re-moisten it? So where should I start? I think I'm going to start with the leg pleats. They're nice and out of the way. Need to moisten up this brush a bit as well, actually. It was a bit on the stiff side for my liking. Okay, edge highlighting. I think everyone knows how that works. Just on the edges. What's everyone up to today? Anything exciting? And on the spikes, because there isn't technically an edge because it's rounded, then I'm just going to go on the top, or the area that would be exposed to the most light, and kind of start halfway down the spike and paint from there, and then the very tip is going to be in silver. Okay, so there's one leg plate done already. This is going to be much quicker than the previous step, unless I make a mess of something and have to go and correct a lot of things. But as if that would ever happen. Me making a mistake is a little bit far-fetched. Five viewers so far. Wonder what we'll end up discussing in this episode. It's like a roller coaster, isn't it? You just never know what's coming next. Unless it's the 17th time you've been on the same roller coaster, then you can start to get a pretty good idea. So this one has a bit of a bend in the middle of it. And it's kind of got a bit of a corner there, so I'm actually going to draw a straight line in this gold down the middle of the plate. Anywhere there's an edge or a really sharp angle, this colour is going to be all over it. Yeah, there's that one done. And if at the end I think, well, that was a bit of a mistake, I didn't really want to do it that way, that's a bit too strong, that colour there, I can always rein it back in with a wash or some of the other golds. Only is edge highlighting Wrathmonger Chains. Very nice. Don't go wrong with a bit of edge highlighting unless you do it badly, and then you can definitely go wrong with it. So I'll amend that to, you can go wrong with edge highlighting, but it's probably best if you try not to. Okay, one more leg plate, and then that's those features finished for now. Trying to think what the first thing I ever edge highlighted was. Could be a Space Marine bike. It's definitely not a technique I ever used back in the day. So it could have been about 2012 Dark Angels Raven Wing bike, probably. A lot of edge highlighting on those. Steve's just started painting the regiment of Long Axe that were put together over the last couple of days, and starting on a Burrows and Badgers Sparrow Warrior. How effective is a Sparrow Warrior really going to be when Badgers are the potentially most most dangerous opponent that you could come up against? I would imagine. They're quite ferocious, aren't they, Badgers? And I don't think a Sparrow would really be too capable of holding its own, unless they're kind of mutated Sparrows, in which case anything goes. Okay, onto all the plates on the face now, I think. Starting with the nice quick ones. Now all the edges and the really sharp angles. Except those that are pointing directly downwards, because they wouldn't be catching light, would they? And there's a line straight down the centre of this, so let's pick that out as well. Be careful not to get the paint anywhere I don't want it to go. Okay, now I'll do the same one on the other side. So I went for the wild and crazy idea of actually announcing the start time beforehand today, which I know is pretty revolutionary for my channel. If it leads to an upturn in viewership, then I'll consider doing that every time. I may just do it every time anyway, to be convenient for people. Now the mouth plate. This colour doesn't look that strong sometimes against the other gold, but I've found that when the matte varnish is on there and you've taken away some of the shine, then it stands out a lot more. Steve apparently hasn't played a game of Burrows and Badgers yet. Well, I haven't heard too much about that game, so I can't offer too much insight myself. We've got Brad in the chat as well. Yeah, I think ideally I would like to set a time for this each day, but it depends what else I'm doing that day. Sometimes I just find myself with a spare 90 minutes and just think, okay, I might as well do it now. But I should start planning things out a bit more, really. Okay, got some decisions to make here. I think I'm going to... There's these little vents where there's like the fiery breath from the mouth seeping out. I'm going to edge highlight round those a bit, I think. Just on the edges of them. Now, there was a red hot sizzling Vermintide stream last night, which was very exciting. I actually tried to launch that video about 4 times, I think, but in the end managed to get it working successfully. And it seems like my streaming software has a bit of an issue when I'm trying to broadcast a game that I'm playing in full screen, or at least at a high resolution, not necessarily full screen. There's too much information being shoveled into OBS, Open Broadcast Software. Yeah, lots of us have had to suffer through things being cancelled. A few tournaments now that have been missed as a result of the lockdown. Hopefully they'll manage to go ahead at a later time, but the calendar's going to be pretty busy if everyone's trying to play catch up. And it makes you wonder what kind of rules they're going to impose when the lockdown is partially lifted at some point. Whether they'll have everything back to normal, but they'll have rules against mass gatherings, which certain tournaments might fall into. And even if they don't have specific rules forbidding some of the tournaments, would people actually want to put them on just yet? Would people want that on their conscience if everyone at the event suddenly fell ill? I wouldn't like to be a tournament organiser. Hopefully they just do everything as carefully as possible and make sure things are safe before unleashing gatherings back on the world. Okay, there's that bit of the faceplate, and we'll do this big forehead cover now. Steve was supposed to be at one today, oh dear. Yeah, well, the main one I've missed is the Easter Beaster, which I was preparing a special model for my Abyssal Dwarves, and the fact that it was obviously not going to go ahead means that I haven't bothered to finish that model yet. So it's just chilling out in a box to my right at the moment. Hopefully next year they'll manage to put that on again. Preferably with the same unique monster, otherwise I'll have to get a different model. Owen is not very confident in the health of your average wargamer. I don't know if that's entirely fair. There is the stereotype, obviously, about people that do these kinds of things not necessarily being the fittest. But I don't know exactly how valid that is. Well, the people in the wargaming and miniatures community, I've seen them doing lots of fitness-based activities on Facebook. But of course, a hobby where you can spend much of it just sitting down at a desk. If that's your main hobby, that might promote some level of inactivity, or it could attract people who maybe aren't able to participate in much that's active. Okay, now to decide how to do the shine on this bit, because you can see there's a large patterned area on the front of his faceplate there. Let's get it right up in the camera so you can actually see it focused in on it. There, you can see that. Now, I think what I'm going to do is this lighter gold, I'm going to pick out an area and just do that in the lighter gold, and then go in with the silver and just make the next bit of the shine slightly smaller, if that makes sense to everybody. It would be frustrating travelling halfway around the world and then not being able to do much while you're there. So I'm not going to go right down the middle for the shine because that skull's there and that might mess up my plans a bit. So I'm going to do the two sides instead, but not all the way up to the edges. So it's going to have two areas of shine, one on each side. So in this lighter gold, I'm going to pick out quite a thick band. And then down the centre of that at the end, I'm going to apply silver down it as well. Okay, onto the kind of helmet part with a big creature's skull on it. Got Graham in here. Boone says gloss varnish it too. I'm probably not going to do any gloss varnish on this thing. Trying to create the illusion of the shine with the colours only. Not quite non-metallic metal, mind you, which can do the job even more impressively, but that's not something I am proficient in. This bit's actually got a couple of sharp edges to be picked out, so that's nice. And pick out some of this detail on here as well. Ready for the shine later on. Okay, you may not be able to see the effects of this too much yet, especially in this very bright light. Hopefully at the end it will all become apparent. So, we've done the legs, we've done all the head in this colour now. What shall we do next? Should we move on to this bad boy on the back, or should we do the fence? Let's do this throne-y bit inside. It's not exactly a throne because no one's sitting on it, but it looks like the back of a throne, doesn't it? So we'll go around this platform first that the boss dude is going to sit on. I think it's an overmaster that you put on a Hellfane. Okay, there's the edge of that circle done. Some of this in here isn't going to be that well highlighted because there's going to be people standing on most of it. So this guy's going to be inside there, so I don't really need to highlight the floor panels very much because no one is ever going to see it because his feet are in the way. So I'm only going to hit parts that people are ever going to see. Just edges. And it's not even laziness with this because if someone can't see it, how would the light be shining on it anyway? So it just makes sense. One more little edge to do on this circle platform. It's in 3 layers, and each one has its own little edge. Right for the plucking. That's too heavy an application there. Okay. Onto the this bit at the back here. All this area. Plenty of edges to work with here, plenty of nice straight lines. This should be quite a quick region. you're working at a nice perfect right angle like this, then you can typically use the edge of the brush for the edge highlight. If you're in a bit more of a confined space and you don't have, or you've got a lot of detail crowding on either side of it, then the side of the brush might not be the best choice, because you could end up catching something else in the process, which wouldn't be fun for anyone. MFT, are you expecting great things from Hellfane on the battlefield? Not really. I think the kind of army lists I tend to take based on the models that I've got. I don't think the Hellfane is that great a combo with much of it. Hellfane looks great for infantry heavy armies, but that's not really what mine is. But the model was too nice. And I can always run it as a Greater Obsidian Golem instead. I don't feel like the actual Hellfane is useful in whichever specific list I'm putting together. I don't think its rules are terrible by any means. I can see it getting a boost in the future. Especially for such a big, juicy, expensive model like this. It would be a shame if people looked at the rules and thought it wasn't for them. Almost done with this area now. There may be some killer combos with the Hellfane that I'm just not seeing yet, because it has only just been released and it's not like there've been a lot of competitive games played lately. Maybe the universal battle community would have something to say about it. I'm sure they've been very busy lately. Although whether they would try out the Hellfane when there's those undead lists with 5 Revenant Cavalry hordes, I'm not sure. Seems like a much more competitive choice. Am I tarring the Universal Battle community with the competitive brush there? Perhaps. Okay. Next, I think I'm going to do this big back plate now. I've done this area, done the head, moving on to this. Okay, here we go. Start off with the really obvious edges and then work from there. There's a bit more texture to work with here. Just not so many stark edges. Yeah, I think there's some, you can see kind of incisions on this. I would describe them as incisions, but you can see there's ridges on the top there. It's like a blade, kind of. I might pick out the edges of those with this highlight. You have to be careful with that. Since it's not on an edge, it's going to take a bit more precision. I want this thing to look sweet. Do you water down your Vallejo matte varnish like it says on the bottle, or just brush it straight on? I use Army Painter matte varnish. Let's see if that says to water it down. Let's see. It does not say anything about it on the Army Painter one. So I just apply it straight to the model. I haven't tested out the Vallejo one. But I've never watered down a varnish. Occasionally I've applied it with a bit of a moist brush, but never thinned it down intentionally. Okay, now these patterns here. Where are we going to create a shine? And what direction do we want it to flow in? If we send it straight down from like here, like that, so it covers two different areas, that could be quite cool to look at. So I'm not going to go too wide with it, but not too thin either, because we do need to get the silver in there, in the middle of it. Okay, and the other side. You might actually be able to see what I'm doing from this angle. What is this madness? Okay, and maybe a bit of line straight down the middle as well, in the middle plate, just so we can have some shine there as well, but not a huge amount because there's not actually that much detail right down the center line, which is where the silver would be. So it's not going to be too strong here. Let's try and give a bit of space for that silver to come in. Bit bold, don't need to be there with the colour. Okay. Now, I'm going to do, let's bring it closer so you can see, these up and down lines here. I'm going to try and catch the edges of those. So, I'm going to put this brush down for a second and get a very thin brush for this task. Let's see, this one is very thin. Let's find out if it's thin enough. I'm just going to go on the top of the lines, except when we get to the top, I'm going to have to go on both sides, I think, because they're vertical there. So, can you see what I've done at all? Let's find out. Can I even get this bit in the shot? Yeah, it's going to be difficult to see with this lighting. Take my word for it. Being very careful not to accidentally invade crevice. That would be bad. We've got Bazooka in the chat. Good evening. Okay, to the other side. It's getting quite difficult to grip this thing because I don't want to touch the model and it's a huge beastie. Okay, how's that looking? Bit thick over there. So I just dove straight in there and removed the lines that were too thick. With my finger. Hmm. I think we're looking okay there. On the back, what have we got to work with? Actually, there's a little bit on the edges of these. Not sure if you can see exactly what I'm doing here because it's very tall, this model. For some of the details, I'm holding it totally upright. So, time for the back. And then we'll come back and do the fence after this. There's not as much weird detail on the back as the front. This is theoretically going to be a faster process. At least in terms of these big plates anyway, there is other stuff here. Wonder what Bazooka's working on tonight. I bet it's a space marine. But as we all know, nobody cares about space marine. Just looking up to see if that earned me a dislike yet. Doesn't look like it. Dwarven Darkness is here. Dwarven Darkness is looking a wee bit scruffy. I hope you're talking about me and not the paintwork. Talking about me, then that's because we're in lockdown, and no one has a shave in lockdown. You'd have to be some kind of deranged lunatic to do that. Zuka, scratch building a bolter. What did I tell you? Space Marines, every time. You need to turn those talents to something more interesting. You can't dine on a diet of Space Marines alone. I can ditch this tiny brush now. Just soap that down, then move back to the other brush. Until I need to do some fine lines again. Owen has finished painting some corn bloodbound and is now painting 120 grey goblin trousers for Oathmark. 120 trousers. So is that 240 legs? Or is it actually 60 goblins worth? And you're already counting each leg separately. If that was the case, you could get a job working for the government with counting like that. Okay, on with the edges. Bazooka says, I have to get all my minis built, they're mostly Marines. Do you have Wasteman minis? Yeah, that would be a worthy project. I've got a few of those, just sitting in a box somewhere until I've actually got a moment to work on them, instead of other prioritised projects. We're getting there slowly. Definitely quicker progress than the last gold layer. That was very time consuming. Should all be done over the course of one day, this layer, rather than 2 days like the previous one. We can hope, anyway. It's not, that would be very annoying. I don't want to be working on the same bits every day. Something new and spicy to show off each time. I haven't actually painted any of the Wasteman miniatures yet. I think I've got about 5 somewhere. I've got Radical Trevor, I think he's called. He was from the original Kickstarter. And I remember when the original Kickstarter was going on, I spotted it. I came across it on Facebook or something. And I thought, this is actually really cool, but I'm about to leave for Adepticon. What can I do to help this? So I think maybe like the day before I left, then I did a live video looking at the Kickstarter. I thought, here's something that actually looks interesting and I want this to succeed. It's a different style to most of what's out there. Okay, back is looking tasty. Zuka, I've got minis to come from the last Kickstarter that's been delayed for understandable reasons. Yeah, it does make sense that a lot of things are being delayed at the moment. Just one or two small worldwide issues that may have slowed things down a bit. Hey, now the kind of beard and sideburn region that this big face on the back has, do I want to work on that a little bit? Do I want to give that any level of shine, or does it stand on its own? I suppose I'll try and just pick out the angular parts of it and see how that goes. Okay, chimney tops. Edges only. If I wasn't using a wet palette now, this paint would all be completely dry because it's so spread out. The fact that it is on a wet palette means that there's still plenty to salvage there. Okay, onto the platform. So there isn't too many edges, not too many going on here around the side of it that can be picked out. But there are some on the fence, obviously. Fence post time. Suppose when you're riding on the back of this volatile creature, you definitely want something to hold you in, so a fence would be welcome. You see a lot of miniatures when somebody's riding on something. That lack of protection against any kind of bump would send them flying. You'll have guys sitting on a dragon and just holding on by a single rope or something, and it doesn't seem like the safest option. Okay, top of the fence. Oh, it says, no seatbelt, no head. Yeah, that sounds like a fair assessment. I think models should have more seatbelts on them. Especially when I used to play Gorka Morka, and one of the rules was that if a model actually fell off while you were moving the truck, then it would actually take damage. Okay, I've used up all the paints. I'm going to need to get a little bit more out here. It's not a huge amount more to do with this colour. Side armour plates now. Some lovely edges here. Okay, just doing all the edges first, and then I'm going to work out the shine that's going to go down both of these detailed areas, both of these two, and then onto these three. So it's going to be consistent down each side. And same for the front as well. And just this one left, I think. Then it's time to work out the shine zone. That'd be a better name for that. Actually, before that, there is this bit around the front here that needs to be picked out because it's just a nice big edge. We can definitely grab all of that. Okay. Looking good. Time for the shine areas. And Bazooka, let's be honest now, Space Marines are quite boring. Maybe you get your excitement from your Wasteman miniatures. They're certainly anything but boring. Very wacky. Maybe that's too exciting for you, so you need to calm yourself down with something that's like an old pair of slippers or an old book that you've read 100 times. Just a bit of Space Marine work. So keep your excitement levels down, keep the blood pressure low. Let's not get into a discussion about Space Marine painting technique. I actually want to retain some audience, you know. Unless we're talking about Dark Angels, in which case it's fine. I'll allow it. So what I've done so far, I don't know if you can actually see very well in this light, but I've done an area here in the lighter gold, and that area carries on down halfway into each armor plate down there. It's not very clear in this lighting, but it is there. You'll be able to see it later. You can kind of see it a bit from this angle. This area here is lighter. Then in the middle of that, there's going to be an area of silver. So it's shiny between the two plates. And then the next area I'm doing is like here. That'll only carry down onto this plate here. The only thing you should be singing while painting miniatures is any of the songs from the Andy and Rem show. What the hell is that song is a personal favourite. I need to work on a more zany, interesting video for that though.